Hello, Legacy Leaders! Welcome back. I think it's day 3 now of the Legacy Leadership Academy, week 2, day 3. Vision, mission, maybe 4 even. Crazy, right? How the time flies. So today we're going to talk about core values. We've already talked about mission, we've talked about vision. I want to talk to you today about core values. And just as a reminder, and I know I'm being repetitive on some of this stuff, the 4 steps for effective fundraising and volunteer recruitment are plan, present, gain, maintain. And so this first step of planning is incredibly important if you are going to be able to make effective presentations, if you're going to be able to gain donors and recruit volunteers into your organization, and ultimately be able to maintain those donors, those relationships, that you can create a sustainable organization where you're not having to worry about where your funding's coming from all the time, or having to just wear everything on your shoulders, feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, exhausted, that you're trying to do it all by yourself, right? And so these planning phases are incredibly important, and maybe you already have some of these things honed in, you've already have some of these things identified. I never think it's bad to go back to the basics and review and make sure that you're not missing anything. If you don't have these things already in place, a really clear mission, if you're not clear on what your vision is, your 3-year picture and your 1-year goals, do the homework. There's a lot of things that I'm going to encourage you, like I'm going to teach you best practices, I'm going to encourage you to do, and I know that you might not be able to apply everything right away. These pieces at the core are incredibly important. And so even if you can't do the homework right now, if you can't do the homework during the video, then I would encourage you to schedule some time that you can do these things. Set aside half a day with your leadership team. And if you need to bring me in to help facilitate a conversation, I'm happy to do that. I have a lot of organizations who have hired me to come in for half a day or a full day, sometimes 3 days, to really just map out everything that they're doing in their organization and really help them hone in and establish all these core pieces of mission, vision, core values. We work on org charts and some of these other things I'm going to teach you in the course. But if it's easier to have me come in and facilitate a conversation with your group and spend some time with you, then I'm happy to do that as well. So core values are not just pretty words that get thrown up on the wall, like I mentioned before, but core values are really the things that we should be striving to be every single day in everything that we do. As founders, it should exemplify very similar to our own value system, right? We're putting so much of our own selves into the organization, so it should align very much with who we are and the type of people that we want to be. Mission is what we're doing. Vision is how we're doing it. Core values is what kind of people do we want to be as we are doing it, as we're accomplishing our vision and walking out our mission. And so core values, I'm going to walk through a really easy way to establish your core values, and I've again done this with a lot of different organizations. I would encourage you to do this process with your leadership team. So if it's you and your spouse or the founders together and that's your leadership team, do it together. If you have a leadership team of some different directors and different people, do it together. Whoever your team is, I would encourage you to actually set aside. This process can take 2 or 3 hours sometimes. If it's facilitated, sometimes it can go a little bit faster. But I would set aside a good chunk of time and really walk this out together. You'll have it be much more effective. So the first thing that you do is you're going to think of 5 people that if you had these 5 people on your team, you could accomplish anything. You could take over the world. Like, these 5 people would be your dream team. Now, here's the catch. These 5 people can't be people who are sitting around the table. So if you're sitting there with your leadership team and you're like thinking in your head, well, I've already got one of the people on my dream team, can't be them. You got to pick somebody else. So you got to pick 5 people that if you had these 5 people on your team, this would be your dream team. You could accomplish anything. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start to evaluate one at a time, and you can do this again as a group. So everybody is a group. You guys pick 5 people together, and then you write the first person's name up. I like having flip charts or whiteboards or whatever. You can do it on paper too, but I like having the visual of something up in front that everybody can look at. And you're going to say, all right, if our first person is John, then what is it about John that would make him one of our picks? What is it about John's character? What is it about John's way of doing things, his way of carrying himself, his way of communicating, his way of interacting and relating to people? What is it about John that would make him part of our dream team? And so you start to go through the list and you're like, well, John's very caring, John's very compassionate, John likes to work with people, he's good at relationships, John's very he's very analytical, whatever it might be, right? So you list out, here's all these characteristics, values that John has that we would say as our leadership team, yeah, this is why we would choose John. Then you do the same thing with other people, right? So the other 4 people, you walk through, you put their name up, and you put the next person's name up, and you put the next person's name up, until you have all 5 people, and you've got this whole list of values that are listed out, this whole list of characteristics and traits and things about them. It doesn't have to just be values, but just brainstorm, get everything up there, right? Don't be nitpicky about like, well, that's not really a value, right? Just everything goes on. Like, John's been extremely successful. He's made a lot of money. He knows what he's talking about, right? Like, doesn't really matter. Just throw it up on the board. This is a brainstorming session first and foremost. Then you're going to look across the board and you're going to see across these 5 different people, what are the commonalities? What are the things that are similar? Are there some of the exact same words? Like, oh, here we've got somebody that says analytical, fact-driven, analytical, likes details, right? Like, all of those are essentially saying the exact same thing. So it might be the same word, might be the same sentiment. And then you might have categories of things like, oh, analytical, detail-oriented, is a cautious decision maker, wants to look at the facts, wants to understand all the data. Like, you start to see like, oh, here's these patterns of like, these are all very similar things. And so you group all of those together and you say, you can even rate, like, how many times did that similar thing show up, and just rate it across everything, right? And then you'll start to see these similar threads through these 5 people. And as you're seeing these threads, start to boil it down to, well, all of those things about analytical, detail-oriented, wants to make sure that we review things well, what if we were to put that into a value, what would it be? And so maybe the value is cautious decision making. So I might say, hey, cautious decision making. Yeah, you know what? That is a value of ours. Like, we do have a value of cautious decision making. We want to make sure that we've really thought out everything before we take a step into something new, before we create a process or make a decision. Cautious decision making is a value across the whole leadership team. And we've all identified that that's a value of ours, right? Maybe you look across and you've got, good at relationships, like relational. And so it boils down to relational is a core value. It doesn't always have to be one word, right? Like relational or cautious decision making, or proficient in leadership, or united in purpose, or biblical in approach, right? Like, there's all these different, you can have things that are like phrases that can be your core value, or it can be individual words like excellence, integrity, professionalism, whatever the different things are, right? And so you're going to boil this all down to, what are all the similarities? What are the list of words? And I would recommend not having more or less than like 4 to 7 core values. I think 5 and 6 is like a great number, but 4 to 7, I wouldn't have less than 4, wouldn't have more than 7. You could push it to 8 if you want, but 7 probably wouldn't push past that, right? And I would really just focus, boil it down, 4 to 7 core values where you say, these are the values of our organization. Core values, right, people, yes. So core values actually help us understand, similar to vision, they help us understand, are we bringing the right people into our organization? I don't want to bring anybody into the organization who doesn't align with the vision. We talked about that yesterday. But I also don't want to bring anybody into the organization who doesn't align with our values, our core values. This is our value system. This is the way that we're doing things. So, for example, if we were to just use that cautious decision making as being one of the values of an organization, that could be a really great value for some organizations. There's some organizations that I would say, absolutely, that's a core value of theirs, is cautious decision making, really thinking through all the details and the facts and everything else. Now, there's some people who are not cautious decision makers. They like to make decisions quickly, on the fly, in the moment. They're like, if we make the wrong decision, we'll just course correct and we'll fix it on the way. And so you might have two different people that have two opposing core values. This person over here has the core value of cautious decision making, really wants to make sure that all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted and we've really reviewed all the facts before we move forward on something. And this person over here values action and let's move forward and we're going to figure it out as we go and we're just going to make a decision because a train in motion is easier to steer than one that's parked, right? And that might be the value and perspective over here. Well, can you see how those two would be opposed to each other? Neither one is inherently bad. They actually both have their place. They both have their validity to them. And they can both be extremely effective values that people would have in different fields or for different things. But if I have this as my core value of my organization, and I've got a person over here who's like, we need to move forward, we're taking too long, we need to make decisions quickly, let's fix things on the fly. Like, you have somebody over here with this organization, you're going to just butt heads, right? So I try to fit this person into this organization. They won't fit. It's always going to create division. It's always going to create conflict. And so that's one of the things that I want to encourage you with, is that once you identify your core values, it actually removes a lot of the personal conflict from your organization, if you're experiencing it at all. It's probably around a value. It might be around vision, but I can almost guarantee you that if you're experiencing personal conflict, where you're like, these two people just keep butting heads, more times than not, it's a value misalignment. And when you create your core values, it gives you something specific to be able to address and not make it about the person. So you can all of a sudden start to say, hey, Peter, I know that you really value like making quick decisions and making decisions on the fly, and you feel like we could just fix anything as it comes up and we don't have to like have everything put together before we make a decision. That's not really the core value of our organization. One of the core values of our organization is cautious decision making. And so I realized that that might not be you. You might not align with that, and that's totally fine. It's not saying anything wrong about you. You're not a bad person. I think that is actually a strength for some organizations, but for ours, it's actually creating a lot of conflict because we have established that one of our core values is cautious decision making. We want to make sure that we have things really thought out before we move forward with anything. And so, Peter, it's not saying anything about you, not making this a personal issue, and it's not a personal attack. It's just that that value for you doesn't align with the value of the organization. And so we can work on helping you to be a more cautious decision maker. We can work on helping you to align more with that core value. Or we can recognize that this just might not be a fit. This organization might not be the right fit for you. You see how all of a sudden that takes the personal conflict completely out of it. It's not about Peter. It's about the issue of the core value. It's about a misalignment of core value. And so instead of having these two different people that are constantly butting heads with each other over and over, it becomes an issue that we can talk about and say, do we want to come over here or do you want to move, right? Like, you can either change the person or change the person. But you can't stay the same. We can't keep having these conflicts happening. But it's no longer a Tyrion against Peter. It's a Peter's value not aligning with the organization's value. And so it can actually be very, very powerful. And then in dealing with conflict right now, but it can also be really powerful in bringing on new people into the organization. As if you can identify people's value system before they even come in, or you can help them to understand, here's our core values in your recruitment process, in your interview processes. You're leading them through the volunteer funnel that I'm going to teach you later on in this course. You can start to say, here's our core values. And one of our core values is cautious decision making. And so, like, And so you walk through all of that. Well, Peter might be over here as a volunteer, and he's like, cautious decision making. Like, I could never work with this organization. That would drive me crazy. So he doesn't even enter into it. He's like, that's just not my thing. Not going to align, right? And so what core values do is it helps you to bring in the right people into your organization. It helps to remove the personal area of conflict or misalignment, and it gives you an intangible, an impersonal thing to be able to solve. It's no longer that Peter's bad or I'm right or you're wrong or anything else. It's about the issue of the core value. And so that can be incredibly powerful as well. And it also helps you to identify as you're training people, as you're coaching them, as you're onboarding people. You can be very specific in the way that you want to do things. And so one of the core values in my family's organization previously, we went around a couple of different definitions of it, but at one point we had said excellence, another was professionalism, and I don't remember what the word was we actually came down to. But it was this idea of doing things well, doing things with excellence, doing things with a professional flair. And so when I had new people come into my organization, we were folding newsletters. We mailed out a physical newsletter every single month at that time. We brought in around $60,000 a month with our monthly mailing. People at that time were still like, why don't you just send emails? This is so much work and so expensive. And I'm like, we're bringing in around $60,000 a month doing this. We're not changing it. Like, if that stays consistent, keeps us a consistent base, we're doing it, right? But as people were folding the newsletters, I had to make sure as I was training people, and I trained my staff to do this eventually as they were training new volunteers or new staff that were coming on, that if we folded a newsletter and it was like, it wasn't lined up exactly, it was like, off base or whatever, like, throw that copy away and fold a new one, because we didn't want to have like multiple creases on something. We didn't want to have it look like crooked or end up misfolded. We really prided ourselves. It was one of our values, was to pride ourselves on being excellent, being professional. When we stamped the envelopes, it was like, is it actually, is it in line or is it crooked? Is it hanging off the envelope, right? And so there was times where I said like, hey, we're just going to tear up this newsletter and we're going to throw it away. And some people, again, maybe they had the value of like a penny saved is a penny earned, and that's their value. And so those people, like, they cringe sometimes working in my organization, because they're like, oh my gosh, like, we just threw away this piece of paper. Like, that was 15 cents right there of printing and paper. Like, how dare we do that? We're not being a good steward of funds and whatever else. And so, like, there's this, again, it's a core value thing. And so instead of it having to be a personal conflict, I was able to say, not saying you're wrong, I'm right, you're bad, I'm good. I was able to just say one of our core values is professionalism and excellence. And so that's what this means in our organization, is we would rather throw away the 15 cents and put something out there that's very professional, very excellent. And we believe as an organization that when we do that, people are more inspired to give and be part of what we're doing. And we don't want to present anything less than excellent in everything that we do. And so that matters greatly to us. And so that we actually feel as an organization that that's being a better steward of what we've been given than to put something out and produce something that's not excellent. And so, right, it still gets back to like, but we can talk about that value, and they can say, oh, okay, good point. And then they can either align, or they can say, oh, good point. Like, I don't really buy that, but that's great that you do, and they don't come back to volunteer again, right? We get so afraid of people leaving or being upset or not wanting to align or whatever. There's so many people out there. Like, if it's not the right person to be in our organization, that's okay. And again, it doesn't say anything personal about them. It's just a misalignment of values. But much better to find that out in the first week or the first day, or even before somebody actually starts working with me, than to let this go on for 3, 4, 5 years and just having all this conflict and inner turmoil between the leadership team and in the office or whatever else, right? And core values help us to actually avoid a whole bunch of that. I've been brought into companies where leadership teams are like at each other's throats, almost in fistfights in a leadership team meeting, and they bring me in to do conflict resolution. And one of the first places I start is, what are your core values? what's your value system? And I start to look at the different people who are having conflict with each other and realize how often it's a misalignment of values. And this person over here is saying, like, we want to be encouraging, we want to be nice, we want to build people up. And this person over here has zero tact at all and is like, I just want to be direct and honest and get to the point. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's a misalignment of those values, right? So I want to encourage you to go through this exercise of establishing core values. Go back, rewind the video if you need to. Schedule some time and do it with your leadership team. Don't try to do this one by yourself. I would really encourage you, schedule a time that you can get your team together. And again, if you need me to hop on a Zoom call and facilitate, or come in person and facilitate and walk you through this process with your leadership team, maybe you're already dealing with some conflict that's happening even on your leadership team. That's a great place to bring in an outside facilitator and say, hey, we need you to come in, help us identify these. I've had people on leadership teams, they end up within 3 or 4 weeks of doing this core values exercise, they realize they're not a fit for the organization anymore, and they actually resign themselves to say, hey, I'll help transition everything out, but I'm just recognizing as we go through this exercise that I don't actually belong here. And it's actually very freeing for the individual and for the organization. So I don't want to scare you with that, but it can actually be a very freeing thing. And I'm here to help you walk through anything that we can walk through so that you can have the best outcome and be able to have the impact that you want to create through your organization.